This video will teach you the swing and how it's viewed and felt from Moe Norman's perspective. When you apply the instruction of this video, you will understand why seeing Moe swing from his perspective will help you feel it inside your own body. I invite you to stand inside my body and experience a single plane swing from an internal 3D perspective. Welcome to the single plane golf swing from the inside. Let's start by viewing the address. When I look down, I am looking at the ball but not focused on it. My view is peripheral. The club is placed behind the ball square and slightly off the heel of the club. I am looking toward the ball, but I can see the club head peripherally. I am not focused, but rather looking in the direction of the ball. My intention is to swing through the ball with the motion of my body, arms, and club, where the ball simply gets in the way of the moving club. From the overhead, you can see that the lead arm and club align. The club is behind the ball under the nose. The shaft of the club points to the lead side of my body. The head is positioned behind the ball. If you draw a line on the front of the shoulders, they are actually closed to the target line, but the back of the shoulder blades are actually open. This is significant for how the address feels, as the torso feels as though you are tilted but not closed to the target. The club feels as though it is always on the lead side of the body. In my peripheral vision, I can see that my hands are pointing to the left side of my body. This is because of spine tilt. I see my lead shoulder and there's a space between my arms. I can see my lead foot turned out through my arms. My trail foot is slightly turned, but not as far as the lead foot. My lead arm is straight, and my trail arm is, as Moe said, sunny side up. When I look at my hands, I cannot see my knuckles of my lead hand, and my lead wrist is fully released. My trail thumb points to my trail shoulder. I feel the weight evenly distributed and towards the balls of my feet. The lead arm feels extended, wrist released and straight. The trail hand feels underneath, and the arm feels straight but soft and without tension. The lead side of my body feels engaged and ready to move. The lead shoulder and arm is where the action of the backswing will begin. There is tension in my trail knee, anticipating my hip turn. The lead shoulder and arm are engaged and ready to turn with my torso. So let's talk about the address position and what it actually feels like from the inside. Now, keep in mind that when I talk about what it feels like, is that I'm talking about my perspective as I set up over the golf ball. This includes all the things that I'm seeing and feeling, and it may be different than what you actually see on camera. So I'm talking to you more from an internal perspective. Now, let me talk about it this way as well. I want to talk about it from the ground up. What am I feeling from my feet upward to my shoulders and everything else? Let's talk about down the line first. Now, what I feel at address, when I'm finally set up to the golf ball, here's what I'm feeling. My feet are the weight's evenly distributed between left and right, so I don't feel weight on the right side. A lot of people think because you're tilted, you should have more weight on the trail side. It's not true. I don't feel weight here. I feel it evenly between my feet. I also feel it between the heels and the toes, so I feel it evenly distributed right to the balls of my feet. So I'm not on my heels and I'm not too much on my toes. I'm right in the big part of my foot there, so I feel very stable with my feet. Now, the other thing I'm feeling at address is my legs. I'm trying to get my legs so they feel straight down on my feet. I don't want too much knee flex. I don't want to feel like my body's being pushed underneath me. My legs are relatively straight, and then I feel like my pelvis is pushed back. Because my legs are straight, my butt gets pushed back, so that creates some tilt forward in my body. Now, that's how my lower body gets up to my hips. I feel tilted forward from my waist. I'm not out of balance here. I'm just slightly tipped forward. A lot of that tip is from the pelvis being pushed back. It's not so much bend from the waist, it's pushing the pelvis back with the legs being pretty straight. That creates the tip of my body. Now, my arms feel like they're extended with the club. I don't feel like they're too high. A lot of people get their hands too high. I feel like I'm extended towards the club head with my arms. Now, what you see here is because of this extension, I feel this arm is fully released. Release meaning if I was to cast a fishing pole, it releases the arm. I feel it released because I have the proper grip. This arm feels pretty straight. There's some tension in this arm, not a lot. It feels a little bit of tension in this arm. Now, this arm feels soft, and it's coming from underneath. And I feel that this arm is relaxed, and this arm has some tension to it. Now, from here, I feel that this arm is much higher than this arm. That's because of the tilt of my body. So this arm must be higher than this arm because of my tilt. And I feel well behind the golf ball. So I also feel like I'm well behind the golf ball at address. That's how this address position feels. I'm looking down at the golf ball, and I notice that the ball is slightly towards the heel of the golf club. That's important. I see that. I visually see the ball towards the heel of the club. I also see the club head beneath my nose. I see it beneath where I'm looking. I'm having to look forward towards the golf ball, so I'm well behind it as well. This is how the address feels from this down the line view. Now, let me go to a face-on view. And let's talk about what it feels like from this perspective, because you're going to check this. You need to check this stuff in video if you get a chance. Because of the ball position being towards the lead foot, I feel the stance relatively wide. I feel very stable. I feel my legs braced. I feel, when I look down, that I'm tilted this direction. So let's talk about from the ground up. My feet, once again, I feel the lead foot has a rotation to it. I feel the legs are pretty straight, and I feel that the pelvis is slightly moved forward when I tilt. So I don't want to just try to lean to the trail side. I want to tilt with the pelvis a little bit. Notice that tilts me. There's a little tilt in the pelvis like this, and that I'm behind the golf ball. Notice how when I do that, the lead shoulder and lead arm come up and they're much higher. So that's what I feel from this face-on perspective. Now, one very important feeling that Mo had and that I have is that this arm, because of my tilt, this arm is in a full rotation this direction. Now, you can experiment with this and feel it. You must have this tilt where the pelvis goes slightly forward, and then you tilt slightly away from the target, and this arm is rotated. You feel it fully rotated. I got this arm in its full rotation to the target. That's what Mo called the rod. It's in that rotation. Very important position because it allows the arm to get extended, and it'll help you when you get to impact. Now, this arm feels soft. Because of my tilt, it's coming from underneath, and it's lower than this arm. So I feel a very low trail shoulder and a very high lead shoulder. It's one of the toughest things people feel here because you're putting yourself in a launch position well behind the golf ball. So now you can see my position here at address. I see, when I'm looking down, I see the club pointing to the lead side of my body. I see that as my arm is in that rotation. And this is how the address position feels when you set up. So make sure that you check these things. You need to feel what I'm feeling, but you also need to check it on video to make sure that you're matching what it looks like as well. It's a great way to practice, is feel it and match it with a model and match it on video, and you can learn one of the most important aspects of the single plane swing, which is this address position. So as you can see, the ball position here, when I look down, it's inside my lead foot. My foot is rotated. And now, one thing I want you to understand is what this club looks like when it's sitting down behind the golf ball, because I'm tilted behind the golf ball. My head is way behind the golf ball. As you can see, the club head position is beneath my nose. It's also well behind the golf ball. And now look at the club handle. When it's actually pushed to the lead side of my body, which points to the lead side of my hip here. That's what you should see in perspective, is that the hands are forward there. Now, when I'm looking down, I don't see any knuckles of my lead hand. That's because the hand has been released. It's an extension in line. This arm is above the trail arm, and this hand is rotated underneath, so you can see the trail arm is underneath. So look at that perspective there, and you can see how my hands are pushed forward, going to the lead side of my body, and I'm well tilted behind the golf ball. Now, the final thing to notice here is notice where the ball is positioned more towards the heel of the golf club. It's not towards the center, and it's not towards the toe. It's towards the heel of the golf club. That's because when you swing into the golf ball and you make this rotation, it will square up to the center of the club face. So you need to have the club slightly on the heel of the golf ball.